Hello boys and girls, or whatever you may be. Today we're going to take what we call calendar art. There's going to be a series of scenes that we're going to show you, and you pick one that you like, and what you're going to do is try to duplicate that picture as well as you can. Now first of all, some of you are going to look at it and get scared off, but you'll find that it's not as hard as it looks. We'll take a scene and we'll try to break it down into the major parts of that picture. Once that sketch outline is made, then you decide how you want to fill the colors in. Now in this particular project you're going to be given extra time for, and you are to do it on a double-sized sheet of paper, and only a double-sized sheet of paper. That'll give you a little more room to work, and it'll avoid making a lot of mistakes. Now you can use a variety of things to fill in the color of the picture, and they all should be colored. One that'll work very well is watercolor, where you will take the watercolor and first of all make different kind of washes. And you'll make a wash, for example, like this sky background there, maybe a wash that'll take care of the tree area there where the river is flowing, and then a different for the snow, and a darker one for these trunks that are sticking out. Now you just want to get the background in a wash, very light, and then you add different tones of color to it. So once you have the basic wash down, for example on the snow, you can add in different tones of darkness. Now you're going to have several pictures that do have snow in it, and snow isn't just always white. You'll have to add some blue, and gray, some purple, whatever it may be, depending on the time of day it is also. But you'll find that you can get quite a good picture. Now if you have the watercolor for a wash, you can do that very lightly, and then when you want to have tones, just use the watercolor a little more densely. Don't add as much water to it, and just gradually work in the tones of that picture. For snow pictures, you may want to use such things as temporal white, or even like a whiteout, like you use to correct mistakes. If you have paint sets, you should be able to use certain types of white there. You can also use magic marker to fill in most of your picture too. You could use pencil color, but it probably will not bring out the color as well. Do not use crayon. So besides crayon, whatever you want to use to bring out color, you can. And don't think that you have to duplicate this picture entirely. It isn't going to work to try to do that. You're not going to be able to get all the detail in. But if you first of all just break down the picture into its skeleton, you'll find that it's just not that difficult to do. Now, you know what a skeleton is, boys and girls. Let's say, for example, you go down to the local swimming pool and you jump in. But they forget to tell you that some bad boys during the night put in a school of piranha. And as you jump in, and the piranha, first of all, eat off all your skin, and then the muscle, and then all the guts and stuff. And all that's left are the little white things called bones. That's a skeleton. Well, a picture has a skeleton too. And all you do is you look at the picture, the example that you have, and outline the major parts of that picture. Okay, here we see the skeleton of the picture. Now, this doesn't look like a human skeleton. If it did, it would mean that it had been in a very bad accident. Instead, it's just the outline or the bones of the picture. Before we saw the different snow drifts in the background, and you can see the lines going there. You can see the stumps sticking out. You can see where the river goes through there and the reflection in that river. The background of where the line is for the trees. The outline of the trees themselves. And then the sky. Okay, now that we have it broken down to that, now it becomes a lot easier to put the colors in. You notice we don't have every single line in. We just have what the basic outline of that picture is. From there, now you can start building your color as you put it in. Put your different washes in the different areas. And once you have that in, then you can fill in the darker lines. Now on this, once you have it, you could take a black magic marker and draw the extra little line for the trees, different little details that you might see in there, different things for the reflection of the water. But if you do it this way, breaking the picture down, you'll find out that it's just not that difficult to do. So don't get carried away with getting so much detail that you get scared off. First of all, get that skeleton or outline of the picture. Make sure you have everything in it that you want. Draw that in, and then put your different washes in, or color it the way that you want to color it, and add the detail. And you'll be surprised what a picture it'll turn out to be. Hopefully when we correct it, it will not be too much of a surprise. But if you stick to the basics, you do put detail in, but only after you have the washes in and put in as much as you want, so that when the person looks at the picture, they'll say, oh, this is a winter scene. It's getting to where the sun is going down. We can see these stumps. We know there's snow here. We know there's this river that runs through it. We can see the trees for the background and the sky. Because remember, the people that see your finished product aren't going to have seen the picture you took that product from. So they're not going to be comparing this to the picture here. They're not going to see that. But you know what it looks like, so try to get as close as you can, and you'll turn out with a good picture. Another example would be this covered bridge over the river. You can see what looks like apple tree in the foreground, a fence. This one's taking in the summertime, and you would do the same thing. You look at the example that's given, and of course that'll be in black and white, and you pick which one you want, and you get the outline of it, and then once you have the outline of it, you look at the example that your teacher will put up to get the kind of colors that you want. Now it doesn't have to be the same kind of colors. You can change them around somewhat, but try to make it as much realistic as a scene as you possibly can. Here is that same scene of the covered bridge, only again we have the skeleton. This part right in here is where that branches are hanging over for that apple tree. We don't care about all the detail in there, we just want to know what is the outline of it. We see the bridge itself connecting from one shore to the other, where the water goes, the fence that's below it, the trees on the other side, the open area for the sky, and the open area for the grass. So again, we break it down very simply. Once we have it broken down simply, we put our background colors in, no matter how it's done, whether it's with that wash or magic marker or pencil color. Once the major areas are filled in with a light color, the way we want them, now we can draw the rest of that in and give it some detail. Just make sure that whatever you do not leave pencil lines, that is covered somehow in wash or a darker marker or whatever you're going to use. Be very careful on how you pick your pictures. Look at something you would like to do, something that you'd find interesting. You may want to take a couple examples and try them. Draw again the skeletons of the pictures. Once you have one of the skeletons done like you like or outlined, then start filling in the color of it. Here's a winter scene. Very simple to do. A solitary tree with a background of snow that takes care of most of the picture. Sky in the background. And to give it some character in the picture, putting little pieces of grass and brush that's in there, filling that in. Make sure you have the outline of the tree done very well. Put quite a bit of detail for the little branches sticking out, and if you use the right colors, it can be a real good picture. Winter scene with a little farm in the background. The highlight of this picture will be the different shades of blue that you use in there and white. Here you can see the trees and the white of the trees, just add a little bit of the black to them. They stand out in the foreground. You can see the slope of the land there. You can see the sky in the background, and it goes blue to a lighter blue to almost a light purple or violet, white, and then as you get closer on, that snow gets dark because of the shadows. So if you do it right, it'll look like light is shining in through that picture. Winter scene with farm again in the background. This picture is nice. Why? Because I said it's nice, that's why. No, the reason because again you don't have just white for the snow. You have different colors of violet and purple and white mixed all the way through the picture, starting with the sky, and then you can see you'll see the different shades as you go through there. The shadow of the bank here where this little creek is running through, and then lightened up by golden white type of bushes, like the sun is shining on them. And then of course the background shrubs, and then a little farm sticking in the background. Remember, these pictures are to get ideas from. Don't think you have to duplicate them entirely. Get the idea of what you want and get the basic outline from them, and go from there and use your creativity. And creativity means that you're going beyond what the normal is. You're thinking for yourself for once. Somebody isn't thinking for you. You put your own thoughts and actions into the picture. In this scene we see the road leading up to the farm, trees with snow on both sides, and you can see the silos and part of one of the buildings, and then in the background the hilly area. This one you're emphasizing white and blue different tinges all the way through, and again, don't worry about trying to put every single little line down for the trees. Get the basic outline of this. As you're looking through that road, all of a sudden you see that farm in the background. What will offset it is a lighter color here and the red of the building. Another winter scene. We're going to see somebody hooking up horses to a sled, riding off to Grandma's house to get her famous chocolate chip cookies. And here again, we know it's a farm scene, but the buildings do not dominate the picture. Put enough trees in to fill in the background. Shadows in the snow, you can see those there. Again, this isn't that difficult if you just get the major outline of the picture. This winter sunset is a very easy picture to do, simply because there's not much in the outline. You see the bank of snow here, and you see the trees silhouetted here. All you have to do is use black for that in the background, and then it's like it's overlooking a hill, and you can see the different shades of red, orange, and yellow down there. This could even be water that the sun is reflecting off of, this part here, and then the sky background. And you're using the same colors for the sky, and then as it goes into this water or snow or whatever it's covering here, and using different layers for the clouds. This is mainly a color picture. If you get the right strata of colors as you go through there and give that effect. You can have a very pretty picture. You do not have an awful lot of drawing to it, but you do have to take your time in order to get the effect of the different cloud work and the sun that's setting and showing that it's brighter down here, and then it gets darker as it goes up and darker as it goes down. And then off to the side, again, the silhouette of the trees. Here we have an ocean coastline picture, and this isn't very difficult at all to get that outline. You can see just where the rocks go. You get the major rock formations down, draw a few lines in to show how the water is swirling the direction it's supposed to be, and when you fill it in, you see that it's darker here as it comes closer to the shore, gets a little lighter, and finally get the whiteness of the waves that are pounding against the rocks here, and the whiteness as it's going against the shore bottom over here. A few little white coloring in there to give it a little more effect. As you put the coastline on here, you just have the growth that's going on the top and then rock on the bottom. The difficulty will be to try to kind of blend this color here with this. Now, if you wanted to, you could make this rock line more of all green type vegetation or just all rock and not have two different things and trying to show the difference there. Here we have a fall scene with a river in the background, an old log that's laying over here. You would like to get the reflection of the water off of those trees. That's one thing you look at. Again, it's like a camera is looking through an opening, and it's surrounded by these trees here, and now you get the opening of the major picture there. A little bit of color on the side highlights with using the red, and over the overhanging branches over here. You can use a lot of different color in that, and again, if you're using even just watercolor, once you get your washes down, just make the watercolor very dense or thick, as we might say, so that that stands out a lot more. Here we have two little ducks. You don't have to put them in. You can put something else in, just as long as it isn't polar bears, or you can just leave them out. You don't even need those in there. Here we have a picture of my backyard. Notice here we just have putting in different types of trees all the way along there, and then accented by the different groups of flowering plants or shrubs. So you just have round mounds that you go all the way through and build up the color as you go along, and you have this path leading through that. You don't see the top of the trees at all. It's made to look as though you're kind of all in the middle of this thick vegetation. The fall lake scene. This picture is accented by this tree in the foreground here with its branch hanging over, and then that gives a look of distance, because then you put this row of trees back there with different coloring. You put a smattering of different colors showing reflection in the water, and then finally the water itself without a reflection. If you get the right outline of this, use the right color combination, it can turn out very well, even though it should be a very simple picture to do. Another type of fall picture, main dominant color yellow, some green in there, and then of course the dark for the bark of the wood. Again, you have a certain number of trees that are major in your skeleton. A line that goes across for this hedge looks like maybe let's say grapes that are growing here over a fence, something like that. And as you look in, you can see not really a path, but a background to it. And here you're using a lot of different things of yellow. This might be difficult if you have trouble trying to blend or work with colors. for others of you, you could turn out to be a real good picture with this. Here we have another lake scene in fall. Have a little house sitting on the sandy shore back there. The water with the reflection of the trees to give a sense of distance again. You have the two trees in the foreground. Put those two in there with the coloring, and then the branches that are sticking off from other trees. So again, it looks like you're looking into the scene. As a review again, you know, when you were young and you went with your parents someplace and they told you, now don't make a scene, well, this is one time you can make a scene. And you pick from the number of examples that we've shown, pick 1, 2, or 3 of them and try to work with them. Get the skeleton or outline of the picture like we showed you. Make sure you put it on a double-sized sheet of paper. Get the basic outline as we said. Put in the background colors first the way you want them. Once you have them in, then draw in the darker colors, the tones, tone going from one color to another, and make sure the pencil lines are erased. And again, you can use watercolor, different kinds of paints, tempera, magic marker, pencil color, but don't use crayon. Take your time with it. You're getting an extra week to do this project, and try to visualize the scene as you would like to see it. And remember, the people aren't going to compare what you're taking as for your example from, but when you're done, they should be able to recognize, if you're doing this type of picture, that it's a winter scene with a little river or a creek that's running through a wooded area. This week's project is comprised of 3 different Lenten pictures depicting the Passion of Christ. The first one we have is Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, and the central figure, of course, is Christ, and that's what you want to portray the most in your picture. You want that figure to stand out. In all 3 of these pictures, what you want to try to do is get emotion into your picture, whether it is the figures themselves or emotion through the colors that you use. Now in this, the central figure Christ you want to have in the picture. Also the tree in the background, and then a couple cypress trees also. A little bit of twigs and bark from the trees around here, and a tree that comes on the side. That surrounds the figure. It makes the figure stand out. And some way you want to portray the light that's coming as he's praying to his Heavenly Father. Now, also in this picture, what you want to do is try to get the folds of his clothing to make it look as realistic as possible. Also to make the face look as realistic. Notice how the head is bent back, but that the back is straight, and that the hands are held upward. You also see a foot sticking out here and where he's kneeling there. Now often when you look at a picture like this, you may get confused by saying, what should I all have in there? So what you want to do is make a rough draft outline. Now here is the outline. Just take the major lines that you have for the figure of Christ himself. Again, that tree that's in the background, the 2 cypress trees. Put a few lines in showing where those twigs and bark are sticking out in the bottom, and where the line comes from the tree. Remember that you also want to show later on that that light is shining upon him. But what we're doing here is simplifying the picture. Make it as easy as possible. Now if you're going to use a watercolor, especially for washes in the background, you can do this in black marker, and I did it in black so that it stands out more. If you're going to use a little more pencil color or whatever, you may want to do this in pencil, but at least have the outline and have the composition of the picture. What are the main ingredients that you're going to have in that picture? Once you have that set up, then you can go to the next step and figure out the colors you're going to use. Now in this picture, I want you to use as much as possible watercolor, and especially for all the background, and if possible, even in the figure itself. You also could use some marker, you can use pastels and chalk, and you can use pencil color. In our second picture, we have Christ on his way to Golgotha carrying the cross, and of course Simon offering to help carry that cross. Now in this picture you see a number of figures. You see the crowd that's following behind, the soldiers that are helping to get that procession moving along the road. Now for your particular drawing, you can just concentrate on these two figures and the cross, but it's important that you get the perspective of that cross laying the right way, and that you get, again, showing the emotion of how that body is stretched out, of how Christ has become very tired, and how someone else now is going to pick up and carry that burden for him. Now if you want to put some of these other figures in, you can, but you don't have to. In this particular one, it looks like what we call a woodcut, where each of this was all carved out. You see the various little lines that are through that. You want to try to get some of that effect as possible and put as many lines in the clothing as you can get, and show the folds again in those clothing, just like the top of his robe where it's slung over his shoulder. The muscles in the upper part of the body. Those are the things, the grains in the cross itself. These are things you want to concentrate. You can see a little bit of a shadow in that portion there. Here again we see just the basic outline. We see the two figures and we see the cross itself. And if you have that down, you have the composition of the picture. What's the main thing that you want in that picture? Make sure that you try and get those lines of the cross as straight as possible. Now we know it was hewn out of rough wood, but try to get it look proportionally correct as you're drawing it. Try to get the figures proportionally drawn. Here I left out where he has his foot up here. You're going to have to put, like, there's a little rise where he's standing on some part of the ground. Make sure that that's in there. Now again, the emotion of this picture is going to be the expression that you're going to finally put on the faces, how you have these bodies in anguish as they're going through this ordeal, and then the colors that you're going to want to use in that background. But first of all, don't get scared off by that first picture we showed of this, where you have all those figures and all the detail in it. Get as much detail as possible, but get the main outline of what you want to do in that picture first. Our third and final picture is of the crucifixion itself, and this one is entirely different than the other ones because it is done more in a dark to a light combination, almost silhouette-like, and yet the silhouettes are not just dark areas or just completely light areas. You can actually see the bodies on there. You can actually see the cross separated from the body. That's different than a silhouette where it would all be one just color. The same thing with the people standing around. You can tell different peoples because there's different shades in what they're doing. Now on this particular picture also, you're not going to have to put all those figures in there and all that detail. You'll want to pick out the main ones that you want. But if you're going to try this one, the main thing is to make this look very, very dark, and I'll tell you a little bit later how to use different things to get the light figures in there. But what you're looking at is different cloud formations, even in that blackness, the light shining and hitting Christ as he's in that middle cross, and the two malefactors slumped on each side of him. Then what you want to do is decide what else you want in that picture. Well, here's a rock formation that should be in there, and several of the figures. Here we have simplified the picture and taken exactly what we want to put in there. We see the three figures that are the main focus of the picture, several of the women that are beneath this rock formation, the hill area, one of the soldiers with his spear, and a couple other onlookers, and also some lines to show that we want to have different cloud type formations, especially if we're going to have a wash watercolor background. We may want to make this area darker here, just a little bit lighter there, make another shade there to give it a little more of effect. Now, you have to remember also, if you're going to do this and have these figures show up, if using a whitening type of effect, that you don't want to get everything too dark. You want to have it dark and gloomy, but you don't want to have it so dark that whatever you do, these figures aren't going to show up. As I said before, you should try to use watercolor as much as possible in your picture. You also can accent it with marker, with different kinds of paints, pastels, and pencil color. This is done entirely in watercolor, and you experiment a little bit with the sky of what kind of color you want. Here I went with a purplish black. For the tree foliage, this is a dark green with black, and also light black with some green in it for the trunk. The cypress trees are blackish green. On the bottom here you have a little bit of a orange with black and a little bit of green for the foliage around. You can see that it offsets then the figure of Christ in the middle. Now, the part here you don't want to have completely white because it is at night, so you make a little bit of a grayish color. You can add white and a little bit of black with it, just a little bit, and you get that grayish tone. And you can see if you make some marks a little bit darker there, that'll look like the folds of the cloth. The same thing for the blue now, sets everything off. Blue was somewhat of a royal color that they would use, and again, if you use it right, it will look like there are folds in that clothing, and that's what you want to try and get in the type of picture that you're drawing there. For the face, you take a little bit of orange, just a little bit, mix it with white, and you can come up with a pretty fair color for skin tone, as you can see. Then over here you leave it all dry, and whether you use a tempera, and you got to be very careful of this, or a white watercolor, or whatever you use for white, even a whiteout, you can have it showing like the light is shining on him. So you could do, for example, this whole thing in watercolor and then do this, the body in pencil color and marker and whatever. What I'm trying to show you is you could do the whole thing in watercolor. The thing is, when you use the watercolor to do this type of thing, you have to have it mixed more thickly. It's not runny. It's almost like you're using it as a paint, and you put it on and move it around a little bit and get different kind of textures on it. You'll see that it will work out. This picture also, again, entirely in watercolor. I tried to do something a little bit different and tried not to use too many variations of color. The only colors that were really used here were brown, orange, and white, all the way through except for the cross, which of course is black or a grayish color. But other than that, I didn't want to get too many colors. And yet, if you look at it, the colors do somewhat blend pretty well, and you can see the focus of the picture of the struggle for that cross, and that's really what you want to come across. So I started more mixing the brown and a little bit of the orange. As you come down, it was more brown than orange. As you come down more here, then I started going more orange than brown. Over here, it was a real dark type of brown with a little bit of orange, and then finally mostly brown on the bottom there. For the clothing, added just a little touch of that orange, or even a little bit of, possibly a little bit of black and with white to offset it and not make it look too white. Here you can see more of the orange and white mixed in this clothing, and of course the bright orange over here. Now, you use any kind of colors you want, but what I'm trying to show again is by using only about 3 or 4 colors, you can come up with something that looks fairly decent. Again, on the faces, I used white with a little bit of orange, so that it gives more of a skin tone on here. But that's one of the ways that you can do it. The thing is, experiment around and see with what you can come up with. Our third and final picture was that silhouetted picture, and here it is almost all watercolor. The colors used are really black, and then the way I would water it down to give different tones. Here you have a very dark black, a little bit lighter black for this rock here, the surrounding sky between those large clouds, a little lighter black, then underneath the clouds between all the figures a little bit lighter yet, and a little bit of accent down on this little hill. Then all the figures, you can see its outline, and it's outlined in black marker, which makes it stand out quite a bit. And then to add a little more accent yet, I took a little white paint, put a little bit under the cloud, and then had as razor coming down, and then painted various parts of the bodies, usually so that it looked like the sun was shining this way. You can see on the figures it's on the inside here. On these figures it's on the outside over here. Here it's mainly on the main cross, a little bit on this inside here, a little bit right in the middle of the cross here, and then leading down. But if you look at that, the white really makes the picture stand out. It's kind of hard to see how that's going to look on the video, but I think you can see that by adding the white and the accent, that it does make a very big difference, and so that you can have a very effective picture if you try. So what you are to do is to pick one of these three pictures, get the main outline, what you want as the composition of the picture, then decide how you're going to do it and with what kind of coloring you're going to do it. If you're going to do it in watercolor, you're going to have to go from making washes to almost like painting it with a brush. If you use marker, it's going to look a little more cartoonish. If you use pencil color, it's going to look more like a coloring book type of effect. Here I tried to show again on these three pictures that you can get quite an effect with watercolor if you just take your time and do a little bit of experimenting around. Today, boys and girls, our lessons are birds of prey. No, we're not talking about religious birds. This prey is P-R-E-Y. And in front of us now, we have no, not a parakeet on steroids. It's the mighty bald eagle. He doesn't look bald, you say? Well, thank